الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن جابر بن عبد الله أنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال: سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت: دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال: السلام عليك يا فاطمة. فقلت: عليك السلام. قال: إني أجد في بدني ضعفا. فقلت له: أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف. فقال: يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به. فأتيته بالكساء فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني غطيته به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. الله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: عليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال: يا أماه إني أشم عندك راية طيبة كأنها راية جدي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء. الله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: عليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي: يا أماه إني أشم عندك راية طيبة كأنها راية جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جداه. السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد. فأقبل عند ذلك أبا الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال: السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت: عليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال: يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك راية طيبة كأنها راية أخي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له: عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وصي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت: السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال: عليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومى بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال: اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وقاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عادهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، واذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. فقال الله عز وجل: يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء 5 الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل: يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل: هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة أبوها وبعلها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد وآل. فقال جبرائيل: يا ربي تأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله: نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرأك السلام ويقصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك: وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرض مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام: يا أمين وحي الله، إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء، فقال لأبي: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي: يا رسول الله، أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة، نجم ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفيهم جمع من شيتنا محبين، إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي: إذا والله فزنا وفزا شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا: يا علي، والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة، نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفيه جمع من شيعتنا محبين، وفيه محموم إلا وفرج الله همه، ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه، ولا طالب حاجة إلا قضى الله حاجته. فقال علي: إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا، وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
Jazakallah. We will now begin the Soul Salam Marsiya portion of the program, and for that I'd like to invite Reza RizvI to recite Soul's Khani. Bar Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad Salawat.
एक बार और दुरूद भेजिए मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद।
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद।
4 में रिपीटेशन। जो है ये जिंदगी आसान, या इमाम रज़ा, जो है ये जिंदगी आसान, या इमाम रज़ा, یہ سب ہے آپ کا احسان یا امام رضا، جو ہے یہ زندگی آسان یا امام رضا۔ سفر نصیب ہو مجھ کو بھی خلد نگری کا، سفر نصیب ہو مجھ کو بھی خلد نگری کا، بلائیں مجھ کو خراساں یا امام رضا، بلائیں مجھ کو خراساں یا امام رضا، جو ہے یہ زندگی آسان۔ درود بھیجیں محمد وعلی محمد۔ حضرت امام رضا کا سلام پیش کروں چند شعر۔ یا امام رضا خدا حافظ، یا امام رضا خدا حافظ، آٹھویں پیشوا خدا حافظ، یا امام رضا خدا حافظ، زہر انگور میں دیا زہر انگور میں دیا مامون، کیا غضب ہو گیا خدا حافظ، کیا غضب ہو گیا خدا یا امام رضا خدا حافظ، کہاں مامون کہاں چلے مولا، کہاں مامون کہاں چلے مولا، بولے آئی قضا خدا حافظ، بولے آئی قضا خدا یا امام رضا
خدا
سر سے سایہ امام کا اٹھا، سر سے سایہ امام کا اٹھا، ہائے کیا ہو گیا خدا ہائے کیا ہو گیا خدا یا امام رضا، درود بھیجیے محمد امام رضا علیہ السلام کا مرثیہ سورہ فاتحہ.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
مومنو آج خراسان میں ہے تازہ ماتم، تھر تھر آتے ہیں فلک عرش و زمین لوح و قلم، آتے ہیں آلے ابا خاک اڑاتے باہم، عابد و باخر و جعفر و جناب کاظم، عابد و باخر و جعفر و
جناب کاظم،
منہ کو سب اہل عزا آنسوؤں سے دھوتے ہیں، جامع میت کے اٹھانے کے لیے ہوتے ہیں، جامع میت کے اٹھانے کے لیے ہوتے ہیں، کیا قہر کے بے جرم و خطا کو مارا، دل بر فاطمہ و شیر خدا کو مارا، زہر دلوا کے غریب الغربا کو مارا، آج مامون نے مظلوم رضا کو مارا، آج مامون نے مظلوم رضا کو مارا، خاک میں مل گیا ایک اور گل باغ زہرا، گل ہوا آج خراسان میں چراغ زہرا، گل ہوا آج خراسان میں چراغ زہرا، اس طرح واقعہ ہے آج کا راوی نے لکھا، ابن ہارون نے حضرت کو جو ہے بلوایا، آئے دربار میں جس وقت امام دو سرا، تخت پر اپنے قری شاہ کو بھی بٹھلایا، تخت پر اپنے قری شاہ کو بھی بٹھلایا، پھر کہا شاہ سے فرمائے تو پیش کروں، آپ کے واسطے انگور میں لے رکھا ہوں، آپ کے واسطے انگور میں لے رکھا ہوں، کھا کے انگورے دغا آئے ہیں گھر کو اپنے، قے کیے جاتے ہیں پکڑے ہوئے سر کو اپنے، درد ہوتا ہے دباتے ہیں جگر کو اپنے یاد فرماتے ہیں ہم شیر و پسر کو اپنے یاد فرماتے ہیں ہم شیر و پسر کو اپنے سید و بے کسو مظلوم غریب الغربا مضطرب حال ہے مسموم غریب الغربا مضطرب حال ہے مسموم غریب الغربا موت کا آ گیا چہرے پہ پسینہ یارو غش میں ہے وارث سلطان مدینہ یارو آٹھواں مہرے نبوت کا نگینہ یارو خاک میں ملتا ہے احمد کا خزینہ یارو خاک میں ملتا ہے احمد کا خزینہ یارو در و دیوار کو حسرت سے رضا دیکھتے ہیں اور انہیں یاد سے سب آل ابا دیکھتے ہیں اور انہیں یاد سے سب آل ابا دیکھتے ہیں پیٹتی ہے کبھی سر کو کبھی تھراتی ہے فاطمہ اس طرح رونے کے لیے آتی ہے جانب عرش اولا روح رضا جاتی ہے بے کسی لاش پہ رو رو کے یہ چلاتی ہے بے کسی لاش پہ رو رو کے یہ چلاتی ہے موت کی ہچکیاں لیتا ہے دل بر اس کا چار حمال اٹھائے تھے جنازہ جس کا چار حمال اٹھائے تھے جنازہ چار حمال اٹھائے تھے جنازہ جس کا
Mu'mineen Mu'minat, Assalamu alaikum. As you know, today we are commemorating the Shahadat of our 8th Holy Imam Ali Reza alayhi salam. Allahumma salli. Your sponsors for this evening's program are the family of Reza and Faiha RizvI, along with the family of Bandai Khuda. Please join me this evening in praying for these families and especially their marhumeen. As this series of majalis comes to an end, just wanted to give you guys the update with respect to our next series of majalis. As you know, Arba'een Day this year is falling this coming Thursday, so our series, inshallah, will begin on Tuesday evening, inshallah. Your sponsors for Tuesday's majlis are the families of Shahinshah Hussain Abdi and Hassan Riaz. Please join us for that program, beginning on Tuesday at 8:15 p.m. A couple of other quick announcements before we get the majlis underway. Just another reminder, as I've been giving you each day, to just continue to please donate and support the new building project across the street. Donations can be made via cash, check, or a Venmo. We also encourage you all to please sign up for our monthly donation program. For more information regarding that monthly donation program, you can see Brother Shaukat Naqvi or Brother Musharraf Abbas. And then finally, we do have our ShopRite gift card program continuing underway. It's a great way to support the new building while also taking care of your monthly groceries. It's at no additional cost to you. If you'd like to purchase a ShopRite gift card, you can see Brother Shaukat Naqvi in the men or Sister Sajada Naqvi in the ladies. And now to continue with tonight's program, I'd like to invite Moulana Syed Bilal RizvI Sahab to please address the gathering. Bar Muhammad wa Ale Muhammad salawat.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله، والصلاة والسلام على إمام القبلتين ونبي الحرمين وأفضل الثقلين وجد الحسن والحسين، الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين، والذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على صاحب الدعوة النبوية والسولة الحيدرية والإسمة الفاطمية والحلم الحسنية والشجاعة الحسينية والعبادة السجادية والمآثر الباقرية والآثار الجعفرية والعلوم الكاذمية والحجج الرذوية والجود التقوية والنقاوة النكوية والهيبة العسكرية والغيبة الإلهية. اللهم عجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه. أما بعد، فقد قال الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية. صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the love of Fatima al-Zahra in particular, a second salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. To give condolences to the Imam of our time on this occasion of the martyrdom of his grandfather, Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Reza, a louder salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Born in the month of Dhul Qa'dah in the 148th year after Hijrah, Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Reza is martyred at the age of 55 on the 17th of Safar in the 203rd year after the Hijrah. What this means is that his age at the time of his martyrdom was 55 years old. His period as Imam was 20 years old. His life, which he spends in Medina, are the first 47 years of his life. And you find that the final 3 years of his life, as per two narrations, one say he was 50 when he died, others say 55. But regardless, all of them agree that the first years of his life he spends in Medina, and the final 3 years of his life he spends in Khurasan. When he lives his life, he lives under a number of Abbasid caliphs, such as Hadi, such as Harun al-Rashid, such as Amin al-Rashid for 5 years, and Ma'mun al-Rashid for 5 years. When we examine this Imam and his position, we find Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Reza is an Imam which each of us have a special aqeedah and a special bond with Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Reza. Without a doubt, all of the A'immah we have a bond with. But Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Reza is a symbol in many ways for the followers of Ahlul Bayt. You know, one such example is when many of you go on a journey, you tie around your arm and you say, this is an Imam Zamin. You find this act as something which is in the remembrance of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida and the status which the Imam has been given by Allah. Furthermore, when we look at all of the members of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, the largest shrine we see is the shrine of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. All of the other A'imma, when they're buried with someone. Imam al-Hussein is buried with the Shahadat, with Aba Fadl Abbas. Amir al-Mu'mineen is buried with Adam and Nuh, as the riwayat say. The Imams in Jannatul Baqi, all of them are buried together. But you find as a symbol standing alone is the grave of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida in Mashhad and Khurasan. So you find in many aspects this Imam has many unique qualities and attributes. And that's why the subject of analysis tonight is I want to examine what titles Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida has been given in the narrations. You know, when it comes to the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, there are certain titles which we give the Imams of Ahlul Bayt as a Shia community. And even though these titles have truth, you find they are one thing, but those titles which are found in the Hadith are something else. You know, for example, one of the titles of Imam Musa al-Kadhim is that Imam al-Kadhim is Babul Murad. That at the door of Imam al-Kadhim, those hajat and those needs which a person has is fulfilled. Now this is a reality. There is no doubt there is shifa at the grave of Imam Musa al-Kadhim. But at the same time, as I mentioned, those alqab and titles of the Imams, which have been mentioned in the narrations, they have a precision and they have a hikmah and a wisdom within it. You know, I was here recently on the wilada of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, and in that lecture, I examined one title of the Imam, which was the Imam being called the Alim of Ali Muhammad. Now, I don't want to get into too much depth because you heard this several months ago, but just for those who are not here, the first title of Imam al-Rida found within the Hadith is that he was called the Alim of Ali Muhammad. You know, it's stated that Imam Musa al-Kadhim salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, the Hadith, it says, Kana yaqulu libanihi. You know, this line, Kana yaqulu, in the Arabic language, it means that Imam al-Kadhim would say this time and time again. He wouldn't just say this on one occasion, but time and time again, he would look towards his children and he would say towards them, Hada akhukum Ali ibn Musa. That he would look at all of his children and he would say that this is your brother Ali ibn Musa, Alimu Ali Muhammadin, and he is the Alim of Ali Muhammad. Wahfadu ma yaqulu lakum. Memorize and preserve what he says to you. Fa inni sami'tu abi ghayra marratin yaqulu li. Now over here the Imam says, my father on a number of occasions, the father of Imam al-Kadhim is who? Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. You know, our deen, when we take our name as a madhab, we say we are Ja'fari. That Ja'far al-Sadiq would say to Imam Musa al-Kadhim, Inna alima ali Muhammadin lafi sulbik. That, O Musa al-Kadhim, the alim of Ali Muhammad is in your progeny. Walaytani adraktu, and how I wish I was alive so I could meet him. In other words, Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida is that Imam. That Imam al-Sadiq says, I wish I was alive so I could meet Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. So you find in this regard, he is called the Alim of Ali Muhammad. And as I examined in that lecture several months ago, I mentioned the point that all of the Imams are known for ilm. From Amir al-Mu'mineen to Sahib al-Zaman, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif. But the reason Imam al-Rida is called the Alim of Ali Muhammad is that the ilm of Imam al-Rida was placed in front of a number of different groups. You know, each Imam is living in a different locality with certain groups over there. But Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, because of his position as heir apparent to Ma'mun, many individuals from different countries, from different backgrounds, from different religions, they would come, the Imam would answer him, and he would show the ilm of Ali Muhammad, and he would be called the alim of Ali Muhammad. You know, when he was in that courtyard over there in the time of Ma'mun, he had gathered many of the famous scholars of the different religions. He had gathered Jatalik, the head of the Catholics. He had gathered Ra'sul Jalut, the head of the Jews. He gathered Nistas al-Rumi, who was a famous Roman physician amongst many other people. And the person who Ma'mun sends to call Imam al-Rida was an individual by the name of Nofali, as Shaykh al-Saduq says in the Riwayah. This Nofali, he comes to Imam al-Rida and he says, "Oh Yabna Rasulullah, I am worried." Imam al-Rida said, "Why are you worried?" He says, "I am worried because Ma'mun has called debaters, he has not called scholars." You know, a debater will do anything to prove that he is right. An alim and a scholar will search for haqq, and when haqq is in front of him, he'll submit to haqq. So Nofali says, these people are mutakallimun, they're debaters, they're not scholars. Imam al-Rida looks at Nofali and he says, "Oh Nofali, are you worried about my ilm?" He says, "Nofali, that moment look at the face of Ma'mun when I answer the Romans in Latin, and I answer the Persians in their language, and I answer the Christians from the Bible, and I answer the Jews from the Torah. At that moment, everything will become clear." You know, when Imam al-Rida, he goes into that courtroom and all of these different people were gathered, you know, one of the most famous lines is that the Christian by the name of Jatalik, he stands up. And when he stands up, he says that, "Oh Ali ibn Musa, what are your thoughts about Jesus?" Ali ibn Musa al-Rida says, "Isa was a Nabi of Allah, but there was one shortcoming in Isa." At that point, Jatalik, he begins to say, "What shortcoming did Jesus have?" Imam al-Rida said that he wouldn't pray nor would he fast as much as he should have. At that point, Jatalik, he says, "How dare you say that about our Lord Jesus?" Imam al-Rida says, "If you say Isa is your Rabb, then who was he praying to and who was he fasting for?" So you find in this manner, Imam al-Rida, he gives an answer towards that individual. And there are many other lines which I mentioned greatly in that lecture 3 months ago, not to be repetitive. So you find the first title of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, which has been found in the narrations, is that the Imam has been called the Alim of Ali Muhammad. The second title of Imam al-Rida, which is found within the Hadith, is the title of him being called As-Sadiq al-Musaddiq. In the ziyarah of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, one of the titles of the Imam which we say in that ziyarah is Anta Sadiq al-Musaddiq, that, "Oh Imam, you are truthful and you also verify the truth of others." Now over here, what does it mean for the Imam to be truthful, number one? And what does it mean for the Imam to verify the truth of others, number two? You know, when you look in the Quran, the word Sadiq has been mentioned in the Quran in a very famous ayat which says, "Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ittaqullah wa kunu ma'as sadiqin." Over there it says, "Oh you who have believed, have taqwa and be with the sadiqeen, and be with those who are truthful." Question: why does it not say wakunu minas sadiqeen? Over here, it doesn't say be one of the truthful. What this signifies is that this sadiq is different than any other regular sadiq. Because if it was a regular sadiq, then we know in the deen of Islam, everyone should be truthful. The Quranic ayat should have said, وَكُونُوا مِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ, be one of the truthful. But when the Quran says, مَعَ الصَّادِقِينَ, be with them, it is saying, oh human being, you will never be within that group, but you can be alongside that group. When you look at the ayat of the Quran in a number of places, they describe somebody who is sadiq. For example, there is a famous verse of the Quran. It says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, those who have iman and they act righteously, ثُمَّ لَمْ يَرْتَابُوا, and after that they don't waver, they don't hesitate, they remain upon that belief and that righteous action. وَجَاهَدُوا بِأَنْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ, and they struggle with their wealth and themselves. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الصَّادِقُونَ, they are sadiq. So over here, if sadiq simply meant just telling the truth, the Quran would not mention a sadiq is a person with iman. And somebody who is sadiq is somebody who does not hesitate. And somebody who is sadiq is somebody who struggles with their wealth. You know, in other words, one of the most famous mufassir of the Quran in the Muslim world, Fakhruddin al-Razi, would say that when you look in the Quran, somebody who is sadiq is somebody who is ma'soom and infallible. Because what does it mean to be infallible? What it means to be infallible is from the inward to the outward, you are truthful and pure. Your iman to your actions, your iman to your tongue, your iman to how you deal with society, all of that is consistent. There are many people, their speech can be truthful, but it does not reflect what is inside them truly, even though they are telling the truth. But over here, a person who is sadiq in that manner, Fakhruddin al-Razi would say, is that it is a personality who is ma'soom and infallible. Now, the Muslim Ummah has a debate who that infallible is. You know, there is no argument in the Muslim Ummah that there needs to be infallibles. But the debate is, who are those infallibles? For example, when you go to our brethren, they'll say that the Muslim Ummah as a whole is infallible. You say to them, why? They say Rasulullah has a hadith, لا تجتمع أمتي على الخطأ, that when my ummah agrees on something, my ummah will not make a mistake. We say to them, if one person can make a mistake, if 1,000 come together, they can make a mistake as well. And furthermore, when we ask you to accept the infallibility of one person, Ali ibn Abi Talib, you have an issue. But when it comes to being infallible as an entire ummah, there is no issue. So you find in this regard, a sadiq is somebody from the inward to the outward. You find purity is there. Inward to the outward, iman is there. And you find in this manner, Imam al-Rida has been called a sadiq. The other title, the third title of Imam al-Rida, which the Ziyara mentions, is that he is Musaddiq. Musaddiq is somebody who confirms a truth. You know, Rasulullah has a famous narration where he says, Satudfanu bad'atun minni fi Khurasana. A part of me will be buried in Khurasan. La yazuruha makrubun illa wa naffasallahu hamma. Anyone who is aggrieved and does his ziyarah, Allah will relieve that grief. Wala mudnibun illa wa ghafarallahu dhanba. And there is no sinner who goes towards the ziyarah except Allah forgives the sins of that person. You know, I ask you a question. How many years was between Rasulullah and Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida? There are 150 years roughly between Rasulullah and Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. In other words, Rasulullah confirms each of the Imams by saying, these will be the Imams after me. But this prophecy about Imam al-Rida being buried in Khurasan shows the truthfulness of Rasulullah as well. Because Rasulullah 150 years ago, when in that Persia there was no Muslim, at that point the conquest of Persia didn't happen in the lifetime of Rasulullah. All of Banu Hashim were in Medina, but Rasulullah is giving this prediction that a part of me will be buried in Khurasan, and when Imam al-Rida is buried in Khurasan, this shows the ilm and the prophecy of Rasulullah. So you find so far Imam al-Rida, the alim of Ali Muhammad. Imam al-Rida, as-Sadiq as per the ziyarah. Imam al-Rida, number 3, he has been called al-Musaddiq, the one who confirms. The 4th title of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida is that he has been called ar-Ra'uf within the traditions. You know what ar-Ra'uf means? Ar-Ra'uf means that individual who is symbolized by kindness. That when you look at Imam al-Rida, even though Imam al-Rida was forced into a position of power and authority, the actions of Imam al-Rida were such that he would try to disassociate himself from that culture. You know, in the time of Imam al-Rida, everyone who was royalty, they would have a private bath, an area to clean themselves. And everyone else would go to the public bath. It stated Imam al-Rida goes to the public bath, not the private one. And when he goes over there, a man, he says, "Oh individual, wash my back." Imam al-Rida begins to wash the back of that individual. They say, "Oh man, do you not know that this is the heir apparent of Ma'mun? That this is the grandson of Rasulullah?" At that point, Imam al-Rida says, "Oh individual, it is ibadah to serve the creation of Allah. To serve the creation and the makhluk of Allah is the ibadah and the worship of Allah." This is Imam al-Rida. You know, this Imam, it's stated in the time of Shaykh al-Bahai. Shaykh al-Bahai was a very famous scholar who was a true polymath, you know, in many different areas. And one of the areas that he was an expert in was architecture and the occult as well. So it's stated that Shaykh al-Bahai did certain recitations at the door of Imam al-Rida, that anyone whose lineage was not a proper lineage, they would not be able to enter that door. You know, Shaykh al-Bahai afterwards, he comes several days later and he sees that that door has been sealed. At that point, that individual says, he says to him that, "Why has this door been sealed?" The gatekeeper, Shaykh Bahai, narrates, he says that, "I saw Imam al-Rida within my dream." And Imam al-Rida said, "We are not those who expose our followers." In other words, the sins and the mistakes of our followers, we do not expose them. You know, that is something which is a reality. You know, in the time of Syed al-Khui, they said to Syed al-Khui that when a person passes away and you go around the janaza, you say, "Allahumma inna la na'lamu minhu illa khayra," or minha illa khayra. That we know nothing from this person except for good. They said to Syed al-Khui, "What if you knew the person? That you saw that they were a sinner. You saw that they made mistakes." Syed al-Khui says, "This khair over here is not their action, but rather it is the wilaya of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam." When somebody has the wilaya of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, you don't have the right to look into the faults of that individual. So you find in this manner Imam al-Ra'uf, that Imam of kindness. You know, Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, another famous incident from his life, which is a famous mu'jiza of the Imam as well. It's stated that Ibrahim ibn Musa, he sees a dream in which Rasulullah is sitting in a mosque. And Rasulullah gives 18 dates to Ibrahim ibn Musa within that dream. When Ibrahim ibn Musa, he wakes up, he hears that Imam al-Rida is going from Medina towards Khurasan. And one of the areas that Imam al-Rida stops in some narrations it's mentioned that it's Basra, other narrations mention a different area. Over there he sees Imam al-Rida within that same mosque that Rasulullah was sitting. And when he goes to Imam al-Rida looks at Ibrahim ibn Isa and he says that here are 18 dates. At that point, Ibrahim ibn Isa, he says, "Oh Yabna Rasulullah, give me one more." Imam Ali ibn Musa Rida replies by saying that if my grandfather had given you more, I would have given you more. So you find this is that Imam. So the titles of the Imam, which we've covered so far, is number one, the Alim of Ali Muhammad. Number two, he has been called As-Sadiq. Number three, he has been called Al-Musaddiq. Number four, this Imam has been called Ar-Ra'uf, the Imam of kindness. The fifth title of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, which is his most famous title, is that he has been called Ar-Rida. You know, when a person reaches their kamal and their perfection, the sign of that kamal and that perfection is that they are pleased with Allah and Allah is pleased with them. That's why the ayat of the Quran, it says, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna. When the soul of an individual has reached the stage of itma'nan and contentment, when it has reached that highest level and that daraja, Allah says, Irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiya. Now you have reached the stage where not only are you pleased with Allah, but Allah is pleased with you. And over here we have that Imam who was given the title Ar-Rida, the one whom Allah is pleased with. You know, why was the Imam called Ar-Rida? And who called the Imam Ar-Rida is something which is contested in Islamic history. You know, when you look at the works of the Ahlul Sunnah, they will say that Ma'mun is the one who gave him the title Ar-Rida, and he gave him this title because he wanted to put him in that position of being heir apparent and honoring him. But when we come to the riwayat of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, we find that this title of Ar-Rida has a different reality. Imam Muhammad al-Jawad salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, Imam al-Jawad is asked by Abu Nasr al-Bazanti, who was a very famous Ravi and narrator of the traditions of Ahlul Bayt. Abu Nasr al-Bazanti, he says, "O Muhammad al-Jawad, who gave this title of Ar-Rida towards your father? Was it Ma'mun? Because that is what the people say." At that point, Imam al-Jawad replies by saying, "Wallahi kadabu," that they are lying, wa fajaru, and they are sinning when they say this. He was given this title by Allah. And the reason he was given this title by Allah is because he was pleasing towards Rasulullah and all of the A'immah which came after Rasulullah as well as towards Allah. At that point, Abu Nasr al-Bazanti says that this is the case for all of the Imams. All of the Imams Allah is pleased with. All of the Imams, the other Imams would look towards what is special about Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. At this point, Imam al-Jawad says, this is the one that even his enemies were pleased with him. That even his enemies, to a certain extent, even they were pleased with him. You know, that's why when we look at Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, as I mentioned, there were many unique qualities of the Imam. One of the unique qualities of Imam al-Rida is that we read in the ziyarah of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, when it comes to the other Imams, yazuruhum khassatan wa amma, that the general population does their ziyarah, and the khas from the Shias, the 12ers, they do their ziyarah. But when we read the ziyarah of Imam al-Rida, over there it says, La yazuruka illa al-khawas min al-Shia. That, O Imam, only the khawas from the Shia do your ziyarah, O Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. In other words, when we look at Islamic history, we find that there are many sects in Islamic history. They Zaydiyah, some stop with the 4th Imam, some stop with the 7th Imam. But you find anyone who reaches the 8th of Ali Muhammad reaches the 12th of Ali Muhammad. La yazuruhum illa al-khawas min ash-Shia. And that's why even when it comes to the ziyarah, you'll be surprised to note that there are traditions that emphasize the ziyarah of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida more than any of the other Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. You know, in Wasail al-Shia, Hur al-Amali mentions 28 riwayat about the ziyarah of Imam al-Rida. Now over here, many people, they may say, what about the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein? The ziyarah of Rasulullah? You know, what we understand from these narrations which emphasize the ziyarah of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida is that Ahlul Bayt are giving us a principle. And that principle, as per many scholars, is that Imam who is the most madloom, his ziyarah becomes the most important. In this sense, when you look at Imam al-Rida in that time, Imam al-Rida was called Gharibul Ghuraba. That Imam who was the loneliest of the lonely. You know, leaving Medina was very difficult for Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. Al-Muhabil al-Sijistani, who was a companion, he says that when Imam al-Rida was ordered to leave the land of Medina, I went to Ali ibn Musa al-Rida and I said that this is an occasion of happiness. Imam al-Rida says, "Oh Muhabil, this is not an occasion of happiness, because I will never return towards this Medina." And it's stated that before he leaves, the day before, Imam al-Rida goes to the grave of Rasulullah and he returns to his home. He goes to the grave of Rasulullah, he returns towards his home. In other words, he is leaving his family, he is leaving his brethren, he is leaving the land of Medina. This Imam was Gharibul Ghuraba, and this, because of this Ghurba, Ahlul Bayt emphasized his ziyarah like no other. So you find so far, when it comes to the titles of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, we have covered, number one, the title of him being the Alim of Ali Muhammad, the scholar of the Prophet's progeny. Number two, he was called Sadiq and truthful. Number three, he was called Musaddiq because he would confirm the truth of the other Imams and Rasulullah. Number four, he was called Ar-Ra'uf, that Imam of kindness. Number five, you find his reality has been mentioned as such as being Ar-Rida, the one whom Allah is pleased with. And the sixth title of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, amongst the various titles mentioned in the narrations, is that Imam al-Rida was called Ash-Shaheed within the ziyarah as well. Now, Ash-Shaheed, number one, means what? Ash-Shaheed means martyr. But Ash-Shaheed also means witness as well. You know, even in the English language, the word martyr comes from the Greek word martius. And in Greek, a martius would be a testimony giver in a court. Anyone who would give a testimony in a court, you would call that person a martius. And from that, we have the word martyr. And in the same way in the Arabic language, the word shaheed means martyr, but the original sense of the word is witness. Now the question is, what are they witnessing? What is the link between witnessing and martyrdom? All of these different questions, they come to our mind. And to answer this question, we go towards the Quran. And when you look at the Quran, you find that the word shaheed is used in a number of different ways in the Quran. But each of those ways has a common root meaning, which means awareness, which means knowing the truth. For example, in one ayat of the Quran, it says, Am kuntum shohada, were you shaheed? إذ حضر يعقوب الموت إذ قال لبنيه ما تعبدون من بعد. That were you shaheed when Yaqub was about to die and he said to his children, who will you worship after me? Over here, the word shaheed means were you present? Were you over there when Yaqub was dying and he said to his children? So you find this is one usage. The first use of the word shaheed in the Quran is to be physically present, to be physically in a location. The second use of the word shaheed is for something to be a proof and a hujjah. You know, in Urdu, those who are familiar, they say that this is a shahid. This is an evidence. In the Arabic language, shaheed also means evidence and proof as well. A verse of the Quran, it says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. We have made you the middle nation. لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. In order that you can be shuhada over the people. وَيَكُونُ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. And the Prophet is a shaheed over you. Over here, what is the ayat saying? The ayat is saying, O Ummah of Rasulullah, that proof, that hujjah who is over you is Rasulullah. Rasulullah is that evidence over you. This is the second sense. The third way the Quran uses the word shaheed is to watch something. You know, to watch something and to ensure that it happens. Somebody who ensures that something is happening, you use the word shaheed for that individual as well. The Quran, it says, Kunu qawwamina bilqist. Be people who uphold justice. Shuhada lillah. Shuhada for Allah. In other words, ensuring justice on behalf of Allah. Over here you find it is what? It is to ensure something. Another ayat of the Quran says, وَاسْتَشْهِدُوا شَهِيدَيْن مِّنَ رِجَالِكُمْ. Bring testimonies. Bring people who can testify. Somebody who testifies is called shaheed. The point that I'm making is that when you look at all of these different Quranic usages, the common idea is that somebody who is shaheed bears witness to the truth. And the reason we call a martyr a shaheed is because the martyr gave the highest sacrifice in the way of truth. So we say, you are a shaheed, O human being. And in that manner, anyone who testifies to the truth is shaheed. You know, shahadat is of different types. When a person is killed in a battlefield, a battle with a Rasulullah or a Ma'soom, you find that person is buried in that condition. You do not give ghusl. You do not give kafan. You bury that person in that condition. But then at the same time, for example, we say Amir al-Mu'mineen was shaheed. Imam al-Reza was shaheed. But they didn't die in the battlefield. In that manner, they're given ghusl. They were given a kafan. The reason is that they were killed. Why? In the path of the truth. But at the same time, as I said, the word shaheed means to testify to the truth. That's why even if a person is not killed, there is a chance that he can be a shaheed. That is why the hadith, it says, Man mata ala hubbi ali Muhammadin mata shahida. The one who dies with the love of Ali Muhammad dies a shaheed and a martyr. Man mata ala hubbi Ali Muhammadin mata maghfuran la. And the one who dies with the love of Ali Muhammad dies with the sins forgiven. Man mata ala hubbi Ali Muhammadin mata mu'minan mustaqbil al-iman. And the one who dies with the love of Ali Muhammad has completed his iman. Because that individual is dying with the path of haqq and truth within him. And those who die with that truth, you find they remain alive in the truest sense. You know, when you look at the ayat of the Quran, for example, the verse of the Quran that says, وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَنْ يُقْتَلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٍ, that do not say those who are killed in the way of Allah are dead. When you look at the Salafis and the Wahhabis, how they interpret this ayat, is that they say what this ayat means is that their name remains alive. It simply means that the names of those individuals remain alive. I say to them, why do you not complete the ayat? The ayat, it says, بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَشْعُرُونَ. Rather, they are alive, but you do not perceive or understand their life. If it simply meant their names remain alive, all of us can understand that. That's not difficult to understand. but the Quran is showing that their life is something which you may not perceive with your eyes, but it is hayat. I'll give you a second evidence. A second evidence is when you go to Surah Ali Imran. Over there it says, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٍ. Over here it said, do not say those who are killed in the way of Allah are dead. Over here it says, do not even think that those who are killed in the way of Allah are dead. بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ إِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Rather they are alive and they are receiving the rizq and the sustenance of Allah. I asked the question, if this simply meant that their names remain alive, why does a person need rizq and sustenance from Allah? If it was simply just a metaphor, the Quran wouldn't say that a rizq and sustenance is coming towards them. So you find in this manner, the Quran is showing those who are killed in the path of Allah, those who are shaheed, like Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, these individuals, they remain alive in memory, but they remain alive in hayat as well. Hayat in the truest sense is something which doesn't end with this world. There's a famous ayat of the Quran. It says, إِنَّمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا لَهْوٌ وَلَعِبٌ. The life of this world is games and distractions. وَإِنَّ دَارَ الْآخِرَةَ لَهِيَ الْحَيْوَانِ. And the life of the hereafter is haywan. What does haywan normally mean to you? To you, haywan normally means animal. But at the root of the word haywan is the word hay, which means life. You find in the same way, even in English, animal comes from the word anima, and the word anima in Greek means to have a soul. Over here, Allah is saying that the life of the hereafter is truly alive. And those who work for that life, those individuals are given hayat in the truest sense. That's why another ayat of the Quran, it says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu istajibu lillahi wa lirrasul. That, O you who believe, answer the call of Allah and His Messenger. Idha da'akum lima yuhyikum. When they invite you to that which gives you life. When Rasulullah was preaching, those people who were in front of Rasulullah, they were medically alive. Their hearts were beating. They were breathing. They were walking in the marketplace. But over here, the Quran, it says, the moment you accept the call of Allah and His Messenger, only at that moment you are considered truly alive. And in that sense, you find the Imams, they embody this reality more than anyone else. And you find Imam al-Rida, he embodies that reality. One of the most famous incidents from the life of Imam al-Rida, and no majlis really feels complete without mentioning this incident, is the incident of Imam al-Rida going from Medina to Khurasan. And as he's going from Medina to Khurasan, he stops in the land of Nishapur. When he stops in the land of Nishapur, it's stated that people had gathered and they had heard that the Imam is coming. And they say, "O Yabna Rasulullah, give us one narration from your grandfather." At that point, Imam al-Rida, he opens the curtain. And he says, I heard my father Musa al-Qadim hear from his father Ja'far al-Sadiq, from his father Muhammad al-Baqir, from his father Zainul Abidin, from his father Hussein, from his brother Al-Hassan, from his father Amir al-Mu'mineen, from Rasulullah, that Jibreel revealed unto him saying that Allah says, La ilaha illallah hisni faman dakhala hisni amina min adabi. That La ilaha illallah is my fortress. And those who enter this fortress are saved from my adab. Ahmad bin Hanbal would write about this narration, that the sanad of this narration is enough to cure a person from insanity or blindness. They said to him, why? Why just the sanad? Why not the hadith? He says, do you see the names which have been mentioned in this chain? All of them are pure from the beginning to the end. So you find when the Imam, he says this narration, all of them say, La ilaha illallah, that is it. At that point, Imam al-Rida, he comes out And he says, وَلَكِنْ بِشَرْطِهَا وَشُرُوطِهَا وَأَنَا مِنْ شُرُوطِهَا. He says, La ilaha illallah has conditions, and I am the condition of La ilaha illallah. So you find this is that Imam. He's taken from Nishapur, and he comes to the land of Marv, or the land of Khurasan. 3 years he spends in Khurasan. And 3 years away from his family. 3 years in difficulty, until finally Ma'mun realizes that his plot will not work with Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. So he decides that he'll poison the Imam. You know, Imam al-Rida, before going towards that final meeting where he was poisoned, he said to his companion Aba Salt that, "O Aba Salt, if you see my Aba, my cloak on my shoulders, then know that I am fine when I leave the court of Ma'mun. But if you see my Aba upon my head, then know that Ma'mun has poisoned me." You know, when Imam al-Rida, he goes, Ma'mun, he gives him poisoned grapes as per one narration. Imam al-Rida says, "I don't want to eat from this." Ma'mun says, "Either you eat from this or I behead you." Imam al-Rida, he eats from it, and you find the poison begins to go through the body of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. You know, the house of Imam al-Rida was close to the palace of Ma'mun. But when Imam al-Rida would leave from the palace of Ma'mun, before reaching his house, time and time again, he would sit on the street of Khurasan. And the reason he would sit on the street of Khurasan is because that pain of the poison had already began to go through the body of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. You know, this Imam, when he comes upon his deathbed, one of the things that Imam al-Rida he does is that he says that remove this mattress from underneath me and remove the shade which is over my house. They say, "Oh Imam al-Rida, you have been poisoned. Oh Imam, why do you want this?" Imam al-Rida says, "For a moment I want to feel the pain of my grandfather Hussein in Karbala, when the body of my grandfather laid on the plains of the desert underneath the sun." You know, Imam al-Rida, as he passes away, Imam al-Jawad comes from Medina. He buries his father. But I say, "Oh Imam al-Jawad, when you came from Medina, your arms were not tied like how Zainul Abidin's was. When Imam Zainul Abidin came to Karbala on the 13th of Muharram, you know, when Imam Zainul Abidin came on the 13th of Muharram, he saw the bodies of the Shahadat scattered across the plains of Karbala. It stated he looks at the tribe of Banu Asad and he says, "Make one grave for all of the ashab." That for all of the ashab, bury them in one grave. After that, the riwayah, it says, as they're burying the ashab of Imam al-Hussein, they're burying Qasim, they're burying On, they're burying all of the ashab. One individual from Banu Asad, he comes to Imam Zainul Abidin. And you know what he says to the Imam? He says, "Oh man, there is one body by the Furat. We don't know what to do with that body." Imam Zainul Abidin says, "What is the matter with that body?" They say, "Whenever we pick one side of the body, the other side breaks and falls to the ground. And then we pick the other side of the body, the other, it begins to break. Imam Zainul Abidin says, that is the body of my Chacha Abbas. I will bury that body. After burying Aba Fadl Abbas, Imam Zainul Abidin, he places a cloth on the ground and he begins to collect the pieces of Imam al-Hussein, the one piece after another of the body of Aba Abdullah. He begins to bury Imam al-Hussein. He buries Ali Akbar by the feet of his father. But you know, one final riwayah, it's stated as Imam Zainul Abidin is burying Imam al-Hussein, a voice came from the cut body of Aba Abdullah. That voice, it said, Tifli, Tifli, that where is the infant? Where is the child? Imam Zainul Abidin says, O Banu Asad, bring the body of the 6-month Ali Asghar. He buries Ali Asghar on the chest of his father. ألا لعنة الله للقوم الظالمين سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون ماتم حسین.
غربت میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ غریب کا غربت میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ غریب کا ارض و سما میں شور ہے برپا غریب کا غربت میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ غریب کا کہتے ہیں پیٹ پیٹ کے سر بے کسوں غریب کہتے ہیں پیٹ پیٹ کے سر بے کسو غریب سر سے ہمارے اٹھ گیا سایہ غریب کا غربت میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ غریب کا انگور زہردار اترتے ہی حلق سے انگور زہردار اترتے ہی حلق سے ہے ہوا ہے قلب دوپارہ غریب کا غربت میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ غریب کا کوئی نہ تھا کریں جو کفالت امام کی کوئی نہ تھا کرے جو کفالت امام کی. لاشا تقی نے آ کے اٹھایا غریب کا, غربت میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ غریب کا. کیوں پھٹ کے آسمان نہ اس غم میں گر پڑا, کیوں پھٹ کے آسمان نہ اس غم میں گر پڑا. ماتم ہے آج خلد میں برپا غریب کا, غربت میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ غریب کا. ارض و سما میں شور ہے برپا غریب کا. ماتم حسین.
یا رضا 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 یا بے کس امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے ہائے مولا رضا. بے کس امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے ہائے مولا رضا. بے کس امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے ہائے مولا رضا. بے کس امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے ہائے مولا رضا. بے کس امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے ہائے مولا رضا. بے کس امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے ہائے مولا رضا. بے کس امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے ہائے مولا رضا. بے کس امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے ہائے مولا رضا. زہر جفا رضا کو مامون نے دیا ہے ہائے مولا رضا. بے کس امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے ہائے مولا رضا. زہر جفا رضا کو مامون نے دیا ہے ہائے مولا رضا. بے کس امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے ہائے مولا رضا. آل نبی پہ کیسا تو ٹوٹا ستم خدایا، مرکد میں فاطمہ کو امت نے ہے رلایا، معصومہ بی بی قوم کے لب پر یہ مرثیہ ہے، ہے مولا رضا بے کس امام دنیا سے چل بسا ہے، آل نبی پہ کیسا ٹوٹا ستم خدایا، مرکد میں فاطمہ کو امت نے ہے رلایا، معصومہ بی بی قوم کے لب پر یہ مرثیہ ہے، مولا رضا بے کس امام دنیا سے چل بسا ہے، کس کو زہر دیا ہے مامون تجھ پہ لعنت، کس کو زہر دیا ہے مامون تجھ پہ لعنت، کس پر ستم کیا ہے مامون تجھ پہ لعنت، آئی صدا یہ حق سے امت کا پیشوا ہے، مولا رضا بے کس امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے، لا رضا بے کس امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے، کیسے نہ سر کو پیٹے کیوں کرے نہ ماتم، کیسے نہ سر کو پیٹے کیوں کرے نہ ماتم، مولا رضا کے غم میں ہے سوگ میں یہ عالم، اہل عزا میں غم سے محشر سا ایک بپا ہے، مولا رضا امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے، مولا رضا بے کس امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے، مولا عرش بری پہ ماتم فرش زمیں پہ ماتم، عرش بری پہ ماتم فرش زمیں پہ ماتم، سر پیٹو بیبیوں سب غربت کا ہے یہ عالم، زہر جفا سے ٹکڑے ٹکڑے جگر ہوا ہے، مولا رضا بے کس امام دنیا سے چل بسا ہے، مولا رضا بے کس امام دنیا سے چل بسا ہے، زہر جفا رضا کو مامون نے دیا ہے، مولا رضا بے کس امام میرا دنیا سے چل بسا ہے، مولا رضا
اے غریب الغرباء، اے میرے بھائی رضا، تجھ پہ ہم شیر فدا، اے غریب الغرباء، اے میرے بھائی رضا، تجھ پہ ہم شیر فدا، اے غریب تجھ سے ملنے کے لیے
کتنے میلوں کا سفر تیری زینب نے کیا، اے غریب الغربا، اے میرے بھائی رضا، تجھ پہ ہم شیر فدا، اے غریب الغربا، اے میرے بھائی رضا، تجھ پہ ہم شیر فدا، اے غریب الغربا، تجھ سے ملنے کے لیے کتنے میلوں کا سفر تیری زینب نے کیا، اے غریب الغربا، اے میرے بھائی رضا، تجھ پہ ہم شیر فدا، اے غریب الغربا، مجھ کو پردے سے میں باتیں رلاتی ہی رہی، دور ہوں گھر سے مگر سر پہ ردا ہے بھائی، بنت زہرا نے مگر شام و کوفہ کا سفر بے ردا کیسے کیا، اے غریب الغربا، اے میرے بھائی رضا، تجھ پہ ہم شیر فدا، اے غریب الغربا، تیرا دیدار بنا بھائی نہیں رہ سکتی، غم میں فرقت کا تیری اور نہیں سہ سکتی، کیا مجھے بھول گئے تم کو بہنا سے ملے، ایک برس بیت گیا، اے غریب الغربا، اے میرے بھائی رضا، تجھ پہ ہم شیر فدا، تم کو زندہ میں کہیں قید نہ کر لے کوئی، میرے بابا کی طرح زہر نہ دے دے کوئی، جی نہیں پاؤں گی میں سن کے مر جاؤں گی میں، تم کو گر کچھ بھی ہوا، اے غریب الغربا، اے میرے بھائی رضا، تجھ پہ ہم شیر فدا، باپ کی طرح میرے سر پہ تیرا سایہ ہے، اپنی بیٹی کی طرح تو نے مجھے پالا ہے، تو ہے بھائی جہاں مجھ کو بلوا لے وہاں، ہوگا احسان تیرا، اے غریب الغربا، اے میرے بھائی رضا، تجھ پہ ہم شیر فدا، ساتھ ہم ہوتے اگر شام کو جاتے بھائی، پھر سکینہ کے لیے اشک بہاتے بھائی، کیا نہیں تم کو خبر آ گیا ماہ سفر، وارث کرب و بلا، اے غریب الغربا، اے میرے بھائی رضا، تجھ پہ ہم شیر فدا، موت سے پہلے مجھے ملنے برادر آ جا، اپنی صغرا کے لیے اے میرے اکبر آ جا، دل میں حسرت ہے میرے دیکھ لوں چہرہ تیرا، پھر مجھے آئے خزاں اے غریب الغربا، اے میرے بھائی رضا تجھ پہ ہم شیر فدا، اے تکلم یہ بہن بھائی پہ جان دیتی تھی، سن کے بھائی کی خبر خاک پہ یہ سے گری، لب پہ تھا ہائے رضا دل پہ قابو نہ رہا، کھا گئی اس کو خزاں اے غریب الغربا، اے میرے بھائی رضا تجھ پہ ہم شیر فدا۔
Mu'min, Azan will take place at 8:21, so you have a few minutes to do wuzu and we'll get prepared for Salat, and Moulana will do the ziyarat after.
We also have the Dastarkhana of Imam Reza alayhi salam in the back of the hall. So after the Salatul Maghribain, if you could all join us for the Dastarkhana of Imam Reza alayhi salam. Thank you. اللہ آپ کو سلامت رکھے.